Mangle, probably one of the weirdest and most interesting characters in all of FNAF, with a lot of mystery behind her, but no actual lore or info really about her at all. How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another discussions video. Now today, I will be giving my opinion on who I think the other animatronic slash character is in Mangle, since obviously there's two. So first, we're going to be getting into a little bit of a history of Mangle, sort of her appearances throughout the games, any little bit of info that we get, and just sort of some subtle details that kind of got me thinking about who the other character could be. So let's just get right into the history. So Mangle has actually appeared in quite a few of the games since her first introduction back in FNAF 2, with her appearing in almost every game since then, minus the more story-specific games like Sister Location and Pizza Sim. But other than that, she's appeared at least referenced in almost all the other games. Technically, I mean, it's sort of like a subtle reference with Funtime Foxy, since Funtime Foxy and Mangle are kind of very similar looking characters. I mean, I think even Mangle's fixed appearance is called Funtime Foxy, so obviously they're not the same character, but they are very similar, so it's sort of more of a reference, I think, than actually it's not Mangle, but it's a reference. But despite her appearing in a lot of these FNAF games, there's very little info actually given about her. Even in FNAF 2, where she first appears, really the only thing that we're told is that the kids would tear her apart and throw her back together, and that's really about it. That's all Phone Guy says. He just says, oh, the kids would take her apart and then put her back together, and the staff didn't want to keep bothering with that, so they just left her the way she is. And that's it. There's nothing else. And then obviously moving forward, FNAF 3 and 4 and everything else, it's mostly just she's just there as a cameo, essentially. So not a whole lot of info given about her, which sucks because it doesn't give us much to go off of. But it does allow us to at least speculate a little bit, and I think some of the subtle stuff that they give us, some of the smaller details, can help us kind of piece together who this is. One detail that I think is kind of interesting is Mangle's voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night and FNAF AR, because you notice the ones in Ultimate Custom Night, one voice is more feminine, but the other one is a very deep voice.
Now I get to play take apart and put back together. You won't feel a thing.
But the ones in AR are kind of similar, where there's a more feminine voice and a deeper voice, but the deeper voice in AR takes on a little bit more of a feminine tone.
There now. This won't hurt at all. There now. This will hurt a lot.
Which to me implies that both characters in Mangle are actually female, which leads into who I think the other character actually is. So, who do I think the other character in Mangle actually is? This is gonna sound out of the blue, but it'll make more sense with the evidence. I think that the other character is actually Bonnet. And like I said, I know this sounds crazy, but we'll get into that with the evidence. At first, I thought that maybe it was some sort of version of Toy Spring Bonnie with the evidence that I've been looking at, but I think it makes more sense for it to be Bonnet, and we'll get into that more in the evidence section here. But I just thought, with some of these subtle details, I think they're kind of trying to hint at it being Bonnet. Why do I think that the other animatronic in Mangle is Bonnet? First, a couple of small details in Mangle's character design implies that the other character is some sort of bunny-tailed animatronic. You can see on Mangle's design that she has a little sort of round fluffy tail in the design, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a fox. I mean, you look at Funtime Foxy and he's got a full-on tail that actually looks like a fox tail. So Mangle having a little round bunny-looking tail doesn't make sense, especially with the context that Toy Bonnie actually has a similar tail, which to me makes sense that it would be a bunny-like animatronic. I think another not as solid piece of evidence, because it's really not evidence at all, but something that kind of got me thinking along those lines more was actually the Magician Mangle skin in FNAF AR. Now, like I said, this isn't evidence because it's just a skin in the AR game, but in Magician Mangle, the other head has the rabbit ears to sort of imply, because it's the rabbit in the hat. But I also feel like it kind of makes sense if it's a rabbit animatronic that they would kind of hint at it like that. Just sort of a subtle, yep, it's a rabbit animatronic. I just think it was kind of something fun. And like I said, it's not like, obviously it's not solid evidence because it's just some small detail. But I thought it could be another subtle hint towards it being some sort of bunny animatronic. Now, these two pieces of evidence alone is why I kind of at first thought it could have been a spring Bonnie. Obviously not a spring lock suit, but some sort of toy spring Bonnie, since there's really no gender specific detailing with this evidence. But I think that there's a couple other details that would make more sense for it to be Bonnet. Another subtle detail design is actually the Help Wanted Mangle design. Now, in Help Wanted, Mangle's design actually kind of changes a little bit, with the eyelid colors on the different animatronic eyes being all pink for both, which both being pink implies that both would be some sort of pink colored animatronic, which you can tell with Mangle, since Mangle has pink in her design. But since we don't know anything about what the other animatronic looks like at all, if it's a bunny-like animatronic with pink in its design, the only other character that fits that at all is Bonnet, which I know is not super strong evidence. It's like I'm grasping for straws, but I don't have a lot of work with here anyway, so I think it's at least a reasonable guess as to who this character is. Now, this really isn't evidence, but just an interesting detail that I noticed is that, I mean, super obviously, Funtime Foxy is inspired by the Mangle design. So that got me thinking, who else in Sister Location could have been created to sort of help explain random details and characters in previous games? Because Scott likes to do that a bit. He likes to kind of explain stuff in other games. It only brings up more questions, but usually he'll try to explain something in a new game to figure out something that was kind of hard to figure out in previous games, if that makes any sense. So I think that him creating Bonnet was to reference the other animatronic in Mangle. Now, am I saying that back in FNAF 2, Scott knew what he was doing when making Mangle and was like, ooh, there's actually going to be a pink animatronic named Bonnet, but we don't get to see her because she's part of Mangle, and that's why I'm designing this character? No, obviously not. Scott did not think about that at all. But what I'm saying is that he designed Mangle with some interesting details, and then when, alright, well, maybe Sister Location can be a good way to sort of help try to explain why Mangle is the way she is with some of these character designs. Now, I can't obviously say that for sure, but that's just something I thought about, and I'm like, it could make sense that Scott would want to try to subtly reference and explain stuff from previous games, because he tends to do that. So like I said, it's not really evidence, but it's just an interesting detail that I noticed that I thought could work. Now, there are a few counter arguments to my evidence here, which we'll get into. Because there's not a whole lot of evidence to work with in the first place, there's not really a whole lot of contradictory evidence, at least not that I know of. If there is anything out there, then obviously let me know. But as far as I can tell, the only little bit of evidence that can kind of contradict Bonnet being in FNAF 2 as an actual animatronic is that in the Bonbon/Bonnet characters page in the character encyclopedia, it says that Bonnet is the first female version of Bonnie, but I do think this actually has some holes in it as well, because in that same page where it says that Bonnet is the first female version of Bonnie, it also calls Bonbon a girl and uses she to describe Bonbon. So if we're going based on what the book would say, it would actually say that Bonnet was made first before Bonbon, which doesn't make any sense. But I think that it kind of just shows that not everything in the character encyclopedia can be trusted word for word. So obviously kind of take it into consideration, but I think that there is a little bit of leeway there in Bonnet being the first female Bonnie. And to also kind of counter that counter argument a little bit, we don't know when the Fun Times were created, so maybe the Fun Times were created before 1987. Like, we really don't know the timeline that well. So maybe she could be the first female Bonnie, but then they show up in FNAF 2. Like, you don't really know, and I can't say for certain, but it was just sort of something that I was like, yeah, there's a little bit of a counter argument there, but there's also some leeway there, and that it can still kind of make sense. Now, to kind of close things off, this is all really just speculation and guessing, because there's so little evidence and so little details and info about Mangle that we can really only guess as to who the other character is. But I think with the evidence that I've sort of found, it's not a whole lot of evidence, but I think with the details that I found, I can make a pretty reasonable guess that Bonnet actually is a character that existed in the franchise longer than we thought, being there in the FNAF 2 location alongside Mangle in the Kids Cove area. But unfortunately, when the kids ripped them apart, there wasn't much left of Bonnet to put back into Mangle. But like I said, it's all just guessing, and it's really all we can do. But I hope that you can see this, and you don't have to think that this is 100% true, but I just hope that you can kind of see some of the stuff that I brought up and at least get thinking about this, because I don't really see a whole lot of videos out there that go over Mangle. I mean, in any videos that do only talk about the character and their history throughout the franchise, and don't really talk about who the other character in Mangle could be. It's just, oh, well, that's just the other Endo head that's part of Mangle, but there's no explanation of who it could be. So I just wanted to make this to kind of bring up a character that could be the other half of Mangle, and maybe get some people out there thinking about this and trying to find more evidence to either support my idea of it being Bonnet, or if there's evidence out there to the contrary but it supports it being another character, then that's good too. I just wanted to bring attention to this because I feel like it's often overlooked for other characters and other details throughout the franchise that people find more interesting, but I feel like Mangle just kind of gets lumped in as, oh, well, it's just Mangle, we don't have to worry about that character, and we often don't try to figure out her entire backstory. So I just want to get this out there and have people thinking about it. But that'll do it for the video. Be sure to go check out my Shameless Plugs, linked in the description below. Be sure to leave a like, comment if you want to say anything, subscribe with notifications on to see more content, like this. I thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this character breakdown video, and I'll catch you around in the next one. Goodbye.